Hello and welcome. My name is Alan Yagjian. I'm an ergonomist, and today I'm going to talk about pads for your computer, for either your mouse or your keyboard. And it's like, what's there to know about pads? Is this just a cushion? Well, I'm going to talk about some of the benefits and which types of pads are better for certain types of mice or keyboards, what materials are best, shape. Let's first talk about mouse pads. There's flat ones, some have more cushion, even though they're still flat, some have more cushion or gel than others. You could, you have to just pay attention to thickness. A lot of times, a lot of manufacturers don't, put that out there. They're just like, oh, okay, width and height, that's it, that's all you need. But actually, thickness is important too, and the material type is important too. Some are very hard, and some are softer. Some have a cloth like this one, and some are plastic. It really just depends on the feel that you want, and if you want any cushion for your palms there. And then you find other mice pads that also have this sort of speed bump in the front of the pad. Generally, people seek those to raise up the wrist posture, to get that neutral posture that I talked about in some of these other YouTube videos. And so you're trying to elevate that. If it's down here, then you get a little bit of angle there, so that's not what you're looking for. You're looking for this. However, today we're going to talk about, is it good to have this or not? Are there some instances where it's not? And let's talk about that actually right now. It really just depends on the type of mouse you use and your technique. Okay, so if you guys have, like, for example, perfect technique, which would involve the use of your whole arm. Your shoulders should be like the pendulum, and the larger muscles in and around your shoulders should be the prime mover there, right, for that mouse, rather than overusing the smaller muscles in and around your wrist, right? So first of all, for my hand, which is like a sort of medium, maybe large hand, but more like wide than long. Let's say I'm using, let's start off with the one that I normally use. This is the Performance MX. This has been replaced by the Master MX3 right now. I think they still sell this mouse, but it's pretty much discontinued. But the cool thing about this mouse is it's quite large. So as you can see, it has a thumb groove, so I can actually prop my hand on top of the device. So I usually use my mouse like this, and this is proper. I can relax my hand on the device itself, and kind of you can see how I get that translational movement across the surface, which encourages mobility in the shoulder and elbow, right? So we get all of that, right? Now, if I were to add this here, does it really help me? All it does is kind of like stop that movement in my shoulder. So now I'm only using my wrist. You see that? So that isolation of movement there, that you call it deviation there, is going to cause overuse of that wrist over time. So what we want to do is, if the mouse is big enough, prop your hand on it. Don't do this. Okay? Especially if your mouse is big, you're lugging around with a lot of leverage, with not much leverage there in your wrist. This big old mouse, right? And it's meant to be kind of handled there. You have to ride that mouse, okay? So let's go to another example, okay? Let's go to the other extreme. Here we have the beautiful aesthetic Apple Magic Mouse 2, and I'm gonna use that without the bump there. I hope you guys can see this. And you can see that my hand is now the profile of my hand is now mainly just touching the mouse pad, okay? Now that's better than it being on a hard surface, okay? But now I mean, I'm still, not only, now I'm moving this mouse sort of with my fingers and just my wrist. And not only that, you also see that I have wrist extension, so I have that bend here. So there's three things that are bad, and if my hand is on a flat surface, it's even worse. So, this is better, but this is actually an improvement. And you can see that because I'm using my wrist anyways to move this mouse. Based on my technique, I could always, use good technique, which would be something like this, right? Which not everybody would probably do. But that's how you would normally do it, okay? So it really depends on your technique as well. So if you have good technique and you slightly pronate your wrist a little bit and rest it here, and as you move it, you're sort of doing this, then you're pretty good, right? Then you don't want this bump in front of your mouse pad, okay? But if you're not, if you will never kick that habit of using planting and pivoting at the wrist, then go ahead and get the type of pad that would do that. That would help you there, okay? So next, let's talk about, this is the Dxt Mouse, and it's pretty cool actually. I think of these mice, it's a type of vertical mouse, and there's two types of vertical mice out there. There's the ones that will try and be big enough. Logitech makes one, it's called the Vertical MX, for example, and then Evoluent makes another one. And these types of mice are meant to contour the entire hand, and they're meant to be used sort of like this, and you could kind of go around doing this, right, in the handshake position, which is neutral, right? However, these kinds of mice are made pretty small. Also, Anchor is one of the types of these, and they encourage a lot of use of the fingers. And to use these mice properly, you really need to plant the wrist, and you're going to pretty much use more than your wrist, your fingers. It's sort of like writing, actually. So, and when you use them, you have to pay attention to that. You have to make the wrist flat on this side, and sometimes it's not normal to have it doesn't seem normal to have your mouse not be in line with your forearm, but you actually have to turn it to the side there, and you're going to use it sort of like you would a pencil writing, as I just mentioned. So if you do that and you move across the surface there, that's fine to have a flat mouse pad. However, I would recommend some sort of pad, a flat mouse pad or something cushiony, because a lot of your hand is still going to be planted on the work surface there, okay? So if you have this here, it's not so bad either, actually. There becomes more of a concentrated pressure on a particular nerve here in your wrist. However, it is cushion, I mean, so it's really not that bad, and you could still relax your hand, so that really loosens up the tension of all of the mechanics sliding back and forth in there. So one thing I want to just say is, you could use this mouse with very high sensitivity, right? Because your fingers can really dial in on, that movement there, and you could turn the sensitivity up. If you turn the sensitivity up of your mouse, you're getting less movement overall in your wrist, less overuse of your wrist. So it sort of concentrates a little bit more on immobility, right? So you're not trying to get a lot of movement in that whole arm. So there's two things that are good in general about, with technique. One is to not isolate movement to just one joint. And use the whole arm. That's important. That's a good thing, right? The other thing that would be good as well would be everything being in the proper posture and sort of immobilizing everything so that you don't have overuse of any particular joint. So this one focuses on the latter, and really you're increasing sensitivity, and you're trying to use it sort of like in a writing technique, right? As long as you train yourself to do it properly, and maybe get a trainer or like an ergonomist, and they can really drive these kind of techniques down specific to you and what you need. But that's the general gist of it. So here's just another mouse that's sort of in between medium large size mouse and this. And what I want to just show you is that most medium sized mice for me are still a little too small, because my palm is still like on the work surface, and if I'm not on a smooth, like jelly surface, a soft surface, then I still have to pick up my wrist and use that proper technique, or and then one of these might be no, I don't know, so this is kind of a close call right here. But let's talk finally about this trackpad here. For the trackpad, it would require a high level of technique. Very hard mouse to use properly. A lot of people get used to these on their laptops, and they're like, I kind of love this thing. On Mac, there's awesome gestures and stuff, and this kind of pad right here, or a pad, would be a little bit aggressive. Okay, so it's a little bit high. You can see that. So that would bring my wrist to the proper posture, but it would also ensure that I had no translational movement at all. It would be the same thing as trying to eliminate pretty much all mobility here, and I would try and turn the sensitivity of this guy up and try and get my posture corrected, right? However, like Kensington has one that's it's made of a harder material, and it's sleek. So that material will help you kind of do this a little bit more, which is, as you can see, it's different than just doing this, right? This is planting and pivoting. I'm only using my wrist, and this is using a little bit of shoulder and elbow, right? And the smoother and harder that surface is, and lower, means that I'll get a little bit more of that movement. So it's a combination of the technique that you're using there with that particular device, the size, the fit, and the way you use it. Also pre-existing conditions, like if it's really painful to move any part of your arm or something and you need to immobilize it, then you might want to go to a situation which involves less mobility. So that's it pretty much for mice and types of pads. Needless to say, memory foam will kind of sink in with your hands, and so you won't get all the height. It's more visco, this is viscoelastic. Like the other one will just kind of sink in and it'll stay there, which kind of contours the shape of your hand. But that's not exactly good, because you'll definitely lose a lot of mobility if it kind of forms to your hand. It locks you in a little bit, right? The other thing I don't like about it is because it sinks you in. So you're sinking in, you're losing that height that you gain from having a pad. So I like gel better in general. Gel way better than memory foam. People could have their own preferences. I think memory foam, feels a little bit better, but I think as far as the ergonomic benefits aren't better for you. Thank you very much for tuning in, and I hope you learned something, and leave comments, and please subscribe. Have a great day.